During World War II, the United States earned the title of the Arsenal of Democracy. Long before American soldiers landed in Europe or the Pacific, the US was already fighting another kind of battle, one of supply. Through a massive program called Lend-Lease, America shipped weapons, vehicles, food, and fuel to the nations resisting Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. It became one of the greatest logistical efforts in history. When the war began in 1939, Britain and France confronted Hitler's powerful military machine. By mid-1940, France had fallen and Britain stood alone. Britain's will to fight was strong, but its supplies were dwindling. President Franklin D. Roosevelt recognized that if Britain collapsed, America would face a far more dangerous world. In March 1941, Congress passed the Lend-Lease Act. It allowed the U.S. to lend or lease war materials to any nation whose defense was considered vital to America's own security. The scale of Lend-Lease was staggering. Between 1941 and 1945, the United States sent more than $50 billion worth of supplies, equivalent to over $700 billion today. Britain received tanks, planes, trucks, clothing, and enormous amounts of food. The Soviet Union, initially an uneasy partner, was supplied with locomotives, jeeps, aluminum, machine tools, and hundreds of thousands of tons of food such as flour and canned meat. China, locked in a brutal struggle with Japan, was given aircraft, medical equipment, and vehicles. Smaller nations, from Free France to Greece, also benefited. American factories became production lines not only for the U.S. military but for allies around the globe. Transporting this aid was no simple task. German U-boats stalked convoys across the Atlantic, sinking thousands of tons of shipping. Still, supply ships pressed on, bringing food and weapons to Britain. Some of the most dangerous journeys were the Arctic convoys to the Soviet Union, which braved freezing seas, air raids, and submarine attacks to deliver tanks and aircraft to Murmansk and Archangels. In Asia, supplies to China crossed the long route through India and were flown over the Himalayas in a perilous airlift known as the Hump. Lend-Lease was not just a program of assistance, it was a worldwide supply chain operating in the midst of total war. The impact of Lend-Lease was immense. In Britain, American food shipments kept civilians fed through years of rationing. In the Soviet Union, American trucks gave the Red Army the mobility it needed to launch massive offensives across Europe. A Soviet general once remarked, "Without American trucks, we would have lost the war." In China, Lend-Lease aircraft and vehicles supported the long struggle against Japan. The program not only supplied armies but also bound the Allied nations together, ensuring that each front remained active until the United States fully entered the war after Pearl Harbor. Lend-Lease formally ended in September 1945, just after Japan's surrender. Yet its legacy was lasting. It demonstrated the extraordinary industrial power of the United States and how economic strength could determine the course of global conflict. The program also helped lay the groundwork for post-war alliances, as many nations remembered the lifeline that America had provided in their darkest hours. From tanks rolling through the deserts of North Africa, to trucks carrying Soviet troops toward Berlin, to food sustaining families under bombardment, Lend-Lease was far more than an economic measure. It was a lifeline of survival, and a decisive factor in the Allied victory of World War II.